The expectations were supposed to be manageable. A strong performance, a winning start, 3 points. That was all most people were asking for. Because World Cup opening matches have a strange history. They create contenders, they create disappointments, and sometimes they create moments that completely change the way a team is viewed. But as the lights came on inside SoFi Stadium, nobody could have predicted how quickly the conversation surrounding the United States would begin to change. Because what happened against Paraguay didn't feel like an ordinary group stage victory. It felt like a warning delivered in front of millions, a warning that may have changed the way the rest of the tournament views the United States. Long before the first whistle, this match already felt different. SoFi Stadium wasn't simply hosting a football match. It was hosting the beginning of America's World Cup. Millions were watching. Every camera was focused on the hosts. And with that attention came pressure. Massive pressure. Because opening matches are dangerous. Nobody wants to become the first disappointment of a tournament. Nobody wants to spend the next 4 years being remembered for failure. The United States understood that better than anyone. They were playing at home. They were carrying the expectations of an entire nation, and they knew that one poor performance could immediately change the mood surrounding the tournament. Paraguay, meanwhile, arrived with a completely different mindset. The pressure wasn't on them. The expectations weren't on them. Most of the attention belonged to the Americans. And teams carrying less pressure can often become dangerous. They play with freedom. They take risks. They embrace uncertainty, which is exactly why the opening minutes felt so important. For a few moments before kickoff, it genuinely felt like anything could happen. But then the ball started rolling, and the United States immediately sent a signal to the rest of the tournament. A dangerous attack, a sudden opening, a chance that forced Paraguay into action. For a moment, it felt like the breakthrough had arrived, but it wasn't a goal. Not yet. It was a signal. The United States were coming. Paraguay could feel it. The crowd could feel it. And the pressure was only beginning. And only minutes later, the breakthrough finally arrived. A dangerous attack, a moment of confusion, a touch that changed the atmosphere inside the stadium. The ball crossed the line. The crowd erupted. Flags filled the air. The noise became deafening. And just like that, the United States had the start they were hoping for. But the goal itself wasn't the most important part. It was what happened afterward. Because Paraguay suddenly found themselves chasing the game. The pressure increased. The task became harder. And the opening match of America's World Cup began moving in a very different direction. At 1-0, Paraguay still had time, plenty of time. One attack could change everything. One moment of quality could silence the entire stadium. But instead of growing into the game, Paraguay started finding themselves under even more pressure. And the United States sensed it. The United States continued pushing forward. The crowd sensed confidence. Every American attack was met with another roar from the stands. Every Paraguayan mistake seemed to increase the pressure. And that pressure slowly began turning into frustration. The passes became rushed. The decisions became slower. The confidence started disappearing. The United States weren't just winning the football match anymore. They were winning the emotional battle. And in tournaments like the World Cup, emotional battles can often become more important than tactical ones. At 1-0, Paraguay still believed they could recover. At 1-0, one moment could still change everything. But the longer the match continued, the more difficult that task became. The United States looked comfortable. Comfortable in possession. Comfortable under pressure. Comfortable on a stage where many teams begin to panic. Then came another major moment. Another attack. Another opening. Another finish. Folarin Balogun found the net. The lead doubled. The stadium erupted once again. And suddenly the atmosphere felt completely different. Paraguay now faced a very different challenge. Not simply overcoming a deficit, overcoming momentum, overcoming confidence, overcoming a crowd that was beginning to believe. The pressure continued increasing. The mistakes continued appearing, and every minute seemed to push Paraguay further away from the game. The United States sensed weakness. They kept attacking. They kept pressing. They kept forcing difficult decisions. Paraguay struggled to find answers, and the biggest moment of the night was still waiting to arrive. But the biggest moment of the night was still waiting to arrive. Because World Cups have a habit of revealing the truth when pressure reaches its highest point. And for the United States, that moment was approaching. As the first half continued, the intensity of the match started changing. Every American attack looked dangerous. Every transition carried purpose. Every minute seemed to increase the pressure on Paraguay. Then came another breakthrough, another attack, another opening, another finish. 3-0. Before halftime. The stadium exploded. The players celebrated. The supporters celebrated. And somewhere inside that noise, the conversation surrounding the United States began changing. People were no longer asking whether they could handle the occasion. They were asking something much bigger. What exactly had the rest of the tournament just witnessed? Because this no longer felt like a team simply winning a football match. This felt like a team sending a message delivered under pressure, a message delivered on football's biggest stage. But World Cups rarely allow teams to feel comfortable for long, and the second half was still waiting to arrive. At halftime, the results seemed clear. The United States were in control. Paraguay were running out of answers. But World Cups rarely end quietly. As the second half started, Paraguay knew time was running out. Then came a moment that briefly changed the mood inside the stadium. Paraguay found a breakthrough. The ball found the net. The deficit was reduced. And for the first time all night, uncertainty returned. Not panic, not fear, but uncertainty. Questions started appearing. Could a match that once looked finished somehow become complicated? But those questions didn't last long, because the response arrived quickly. The United States didn't panic. They didn't retreat. They didn't lose control. Instead, they continued doing exactly what they had done all night. Attacking, pressing, believing. Then came the final statement. Another attack, another opportunity, another finish. Gio Reyna found the moment. The stadium erupted once more. And suddenly, the scoreline reflected exactly what the football world had witnessed all night. 4 goals, 1 victory, 1 message. Because this wasn't just about 3 points anymore. This wasn't just about winning an opening match. This felt bigger than that. Opening matches often tell us something, and what the United States showed on this night was impossible to ignore. They showed confidence. They showed composure. Most importantly, they showed that pressure was not going to define them. The United States didn't just win. They made the rest of the tournament pay attention. But there is another side to this story. Paraguay now faced growing pressure, growing questions, and very little room for error moving forward. Which raises an even bigger question. Was this simply a strong start for the United States? Or was it the first sign of something much bigger? Which raises the biggest question of all. Was this simply a strong start for the United States? Or was it the first sign of something much bigger? Maybe that's why World Cup matches feel different. Because they are never just 90 minutes of football. They create confidence, they create doubt, and sometimes they change the way an entire tournament is viewed. On this night, the United States carried the expectations of an entire nation, the pressure of being hosts, the pressure of expectation, and somehow they turned that pressure into confidence. But World Cups are ruthless. One great night guarantees nothing. The next challenge is already waiting, and the next test may be even more difficult, because every strong performance creates new expectations. For now, one thing is clear. The United States didn't just win their opening match of World Cup 2026. They sent a warning. But what do you think? Was this simply a convincing victory? Or did the United States just send the first major warning of World Cup 2026? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy cinematic football stories like this one, be sure to subscribe to Final Whistle and join us for every twist, every shock, and every unforgettable moment of World Cup 2026. Because while the United States celebrate and Paraguay search for answers, the tournament is already moving forward. And trust me, this story is only getting started.